All right. Want to talk about the partnership between Vultr and Clarifai. So Clarifai is a orchestration solution. So if you have AI models, AI applications, workloads, etc., anything that is Kubernetes, you can point to our cloud. So whether it's Vultr or the hyperscalers, you have the ability to actually appropriately deploy those models onto the appropriate GPUs. So that's who we are. You heard about cloud orchestration, Kubernetes orchestration. Now it's AI orchestration. Now, we've been in the business for about 10 years. We are a 100 plus person company, Series C startup. Started in computer vision, so we are experts in computer vision, but have recently noticed that the AI orchestration problem, which we used to use for our internal solutions, is a huge ask as companies scale. For example, many of you will have free credits from AWS, Azure, Oracle, take your pick. It's hard to use more than one of those. I mean, you can't use credits from more than one of those clouds unless you're willing to change the service interface. Well, if you have Clarifai, you can point to any one of those. And if you want to go on-prem, which if you're a regulated industry, we kind of cut our teeth in the defense business, half our business is DoD related. If you want to go on-prem, again, no change to the code, you can go there. We have hundreds of models available, so this week DeepSeek had launched some really interesting top of the charts kind of models, all available within 3 or 4 hours in our inference service. So that's who we are. Typically what we find is that a lot of savings are possible across compute, control, and customize or build. So most of the compute that people are using basically being used fairly inefficiently. Saving 60% to is pretty straightforward for us, as much as 90%. That's because we tend to pack our GPUs, and I'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. In terms of just control, getting your teams organized and oriented properly, tool sprawl is an issue. Many people just go to Hugging Face. Team 1 has a set of tools. Team 2 has a set of tools. Open source is wonderful. You have so much choice. But the challenge is that when teams are using their own sets of tools, you come back to IT and say like, hey, help organize all this. Well, we kind of help you with some recommended tooling if that's something that's of need to you. Lastly, in terms of project execution, typically when you have shortage of GPUs or compute, your projects are delayed. You're waiting behind provisioning. So by using Clarifai across your various GPU clouds, you are in a position to kind of optimize your spend. So production ready compute. So when we talk about this, it's all vendor agnostic. So if you are looking at private clouds, whether it's NVIDIA or AMD next week or HP or Dell, doesn't matter. We can provision across all of those. So long as you have a Kubernetes workload, we are good to go. And many flavors of Kubernetes, right? So all the CentOS, Ubuntu, all of that is available. So it doesn't matter. We're agnostic to that. In terms of just control and governance, we have the ability to actually work across these platforms and pool the GPUs. So that's a way to kind of manage across these and allow your teams flexible usage. The way we work, we have a control plane and we have a compute plane. Now, typically the control plane is in our VPC, so very quick to get on board, set up an account. You have access to our control APIs. You can start pointing it at your AWS or Azure or your private clouds or Vultr, doesn't matter. We're ready to go. Now, the the compute plane can be in our SaaS, in our VPC. It can be your private VPC, or it can be your private data center. Doesn't matter. Any of those things are possible. Now, the interesting thing here is that we work across our APIs, so we do not use excess ports. We're not opening up, pathways that are a security weakness. So we just work across our APIs. Data comes outbound, so that way, you are as secure a posture as we can kind of make it, right? In terms of the way you actually manage this, you have your UI if that's what you prefer. But if you prefer a programmatic interface, it's very easy to actually use small snippets of Python. And you can just change the configuration files, choose the source models. You want to go get it from a Hugging Face. You want to create your own model. You want to pick models from our sandbox, no problem. If you are looking at pointing it to different clouds, just say a small change in your Python parameters and you're good to go. So the Pythonic interface is very simple for people who are used to a programmatic way of using this. As I was mentioning before, the compute itself can be sliced and diced, create clusters, node pools, virtual pools. So you can assign these pools across different teams. You could be in different locations and you can still create a hybrid pool. All of this means that the GPUs your companies acquire, say you acquired 10 GPUs from Vultr, we can make sure it runs the distance. So running at 90-95% utilization is fairly normal for us. So again, I'll talk more about what are some of those kind of cost-saving capabilities. Now, in terms of actually optimizing deployments, we are very cautious about spend. So scaling down to 0. So setting it where you scale down to 1 if you care about what your latency at start is. So you do not want like a cold start, you prefer a warm start. All of those are simple choices that you can make, and we can deliver that quite simply. Now, in terms of actual optimization, um, in addition to scaling down to 0, scaling to 1, etc., we do GPU fractioning. So we really pack the GPUs with our workloads. Now, we can batch or use pods as well. So now with agentic workloads, this gets to be a huge problem, because if you are using time-based GPUs, so you're buying GPUs by the minute or by the hour from your favorite public cloud, and you're running that, or you may use a token-based metric. Now, if you're using a token-based metric, it doesn't really work very well for your agentic flows, because you have these long-running tasks which are going through these reasoning steps. And if you're using tokens, then you could use 100x more tokens than a one-shot query or a prompt to your chat GPT. So those are sorts of things that we can work with you on. So if you are using agentic flows, we will provision MCP servers for you, which is a little bit of a pain if you have to do it yourself. So with agentic, we can look at different ways in which you can optimize your spend, because if you then go to dedicated GPUs, we can actually pack a lot of these agentic workflows into a few GPUs. So again, as you step past the prototyping phase and start scaling application, the ROI of your use cases really makes a difference. Now, if some of you are in a startup that uses, our AI native, then this is par for the course. You make or break your business based upon how much you're consuming and how efficiently you are using those GPUs. Control center standard usage across, all of this looks kind of familiar. No different from other cloud dashboards you've seen, because all it's doing is the same sort of usage by user, by team, by project, by company, how you're doing against spend. Very same sorts of things that you would do in your cloud. We just do it with your AI assets, your GPUs, your models, your AI projects. In terms of actual execution, we tend to do very well. So comparing against a few other orchestrations, call them company ABC. If you're in this space, there are about like 4 or 5 companies that actually do somewhat similar things to what we do. Having been in the business longer than any of them, we've kind of learned a few tricks along the way. So whether it's time to first token or latency per token, we tend to do very well in terms of performance. So that first chart, small is good, latency, small is good. So both of those on the left side, the lower is better. Now, when you look at token throughput, higher is better on the right side. So again, we do better than most. So not only are we saving you money, but we will also be really fast, and our latency is quite attractive. Lastly, in terms of the overall economics, right? Again, we come back to economics because at the end of the day, this sort of makes or breaks your business, and there are many, many dimensions. So 90% savings, seems like a reach, but that's because we have lots of levers that you can actually throw. Typically, when you are fractioning your GPUs, 2 to 4x savings is par for the course. Not hard to achieve double, or triple the packing that you would normally do. People, when engineers are using GPUs, it's hard to tell like how much of that GPU you're actually using. So we stand behind this and make all this work. Spot instances, well, if you don't really care about how fast your application is running, clouds will give you spot instances, but we will do that on your private cloud as well. So share the dedicated GPUs you have, share it with your team. If you have long-running applications, don't worry about it. Load it as a batch or use Spot, etc. Lots of training needs are well suited to that kind of thing. I talked about traffic-based, etc. Now, lastly, when you look at our overall resilience, millions of models stood up. We tend to have very high uh, operational throughputs, millions of requests per second. And lastly, in terms of like 5 nines or 4 nines of resiliency that you're looking at, this is something that at least in the AI space, it's fairly sort of nascent. So I won't name names, but top tier LLMs, for them to be down a few hours a month is not abnormal. But in any kind of production application, that doesn't work. If you are an insurance company and you've got an LLM-based application that's serving 30,000 agents in the field, you cannot be down 4 hours in a month. We'll give you 5 nines. So, so just running through the overall kind of differentiators, very flexible deployment, security because we kind of give you a wall garden of tools that you can select. You can of course get open source tools if you want. We have vendor agnostic, so that helps. And lastly, we have create tools certainly around computer vision. We partner with low code, no code, agentic kind of frameworks for whom we are the sort of, we deliver the MCP framework itself, et cetera, behind it. So really it's about orchestration, flexibility, security, and economics. Lastly, very easy to get going. We got $5,000 in free credits. If you just want to use our SaaS service, you'll be up and running in 15 minutes. Any questions? You can. The question was, how do you make this work for a family office? If you're a really small shop, then you can use our inference as a service, where we will slice and dice GPUs, and you see if our price is attractive. So we've got tens of models. Pick your model, run it on our SaaS service. You don't have to worry about. So we will use things like Vultr and AWS behind the scenes, and you're not locked in. You use our API. If you want to go to, as you scale up a little bit, you decide that okay, AWS is giving you great pricing or Vultr is giving you great pricing. That's where you want to be. It's just a matter of changing a few parameters to actually go and work that. So we are, SOC, NIST, HIPAA, etc. compliant. So we've been in the SaaS business, and again, we are DoD. We have a lot of DoD projects as well. Been in the business for 10 years, so compliance is par for the course. And with AI, compliance is a huge deal because you're touching data everywhere. So yeah, been in the business for a long time. And if you want to be super secure, go private. Yeah, the question here is that this private office has 9 separate companies that they're holding. How do I do it for all these different companies? Actually, you are like a little telco provider. We are, in discussions with telco customers. So role-based access calls or control, or multi-tiered dashboards where you can see the overarching view, but each of your portfolio companies get their own view of it, etc. So there is a little bit more access control that we need to work through, but we're happy to work there because that's where we're going. Any other questions or thoughts before you go for Morty and its fully animated capabilities?
What kind of platforms you are platform agnostic or you support?
We are completely platform agnostic, so we just sit on top of either dedicated servers from HP or Dell or what have you, or neo clouds like Vultr, or hyperscalers like AWS. All of them just pick your API calls and go appropriately. The great news is that when you get a terrific value from companies like Vultr, you can move your workloads wherever you want with just a small change in your Pythonic API. Yep, happy to chat if you want. Yeah.